There are some people without whom the project simply would not have happened. Martin is a friend and relatives. We nearly have as many cousins as Joe Biden now. We're delighted that some of our American cousins are here with us today. Eddie, with his fine workmanship, managed to negotiate through Brendan's sometimes unpredictable design ideas to ensure that the monument was completed. But above all, we are in our debt to the Burke family. Liam, who sadly passed away a short few weeks ago, generously offered this site without hesitation when other locations in the village were deemed unsuitable. Liam is in our thoughts and prayers, and we're delighted that some of his family can join us today. Well, this is primarily a Republican monument to the three Darcy brothers. I think it was important that we included reference to the many Darcys and the all who left, made a sacrifice to leave their parish and hold on to their But finally, this monument isn't just a Darcy monument. It represents the many families in this parish and beyond who made similar sacrifices. It is their story also. And I'd hand over to Cathal to give the keynote address.
Thank you, Ivor. Good afternoon, everyone. And just put in tight so we're all safe as we get the commemoration underway. So just want to welcome everyone here today, and to particularly thank Ivor, Martin and the Daly family for asking me to give the oration here today at Darcy. The idea of having the Darcy Monument here was first conceived by the late Brendan Daly back in 2019, and it was fully completed in July 2023. And before I go into the background of it, I'd like to mention a few people. Firstly, on behalf of the Daly family, as you've just heard from Ivor, this wouldn't have happened but for the generosity of the Burke family. And I'm very involved in commemoration in my home parish of Meath Cartine. We've put up 7 monuments, and nearly with each monument we had difficulty acquiring a site. It isn't easy, and it's very generous of the Burke family to have done that, and we're very much thinking of the late Liam here today, who'll be very proud to see this memorial and the crowd that has gathered here beside it. And in particular, on behalf of the crowd assembled, we extend again our deepest sympathies to Rebecca, James, Martina, Sinead and Neil. I'd like to mention Eddie McNamara, who did this fabulous stonework and design. And I know, Eddie, that Brendan was very grateful for all of your time and efforts here. Thank you to Michael Cusack and Michael McTighe for the granite plaques, along with all of Brendan's neighbours and friends who gave a helping hand with the development of the history. In particular, I'd like to welcome Martin Darcy's granddaughters, Nancy Sorensen and Mary Gilbert, along with their families, who travelled all the way from Monterey in California. Have I the address right? Okay. So we're delighted to be here, and I asked them coming down the street, have you been to Cooraclare before? It's their first time, so it's a very special occasion. They're not frequent visitors here, this is their first time, and they're here at a time when their family and the contribution of family to Irish independence has been recognised by the community and all of us assembled here today. I know that and Nancy and Mary, I know that your late mother Peg Darcy Gerba's ashes are placed here at this site. I know that Peg had been hoping to come here for a second trip to Cooraclare to see the monument. So thank you all very much again for making the trip from Monterey to Cooraclare. Particularly want to thank Martin Daly. A huge amount of effort has gone into this commemoration, getting sound systems to putting out phone calls, getting people together. Even helped with the speech. He said you can edit it away, but he gave me a damn good speech. So Martin, which side? Where's Martin going to?
Hiding there in the corner.
There in the background. A couple of us for Martin.
On Martin.
And finally, I'd like to give special mention to Brendan's late brothers, Michael, Paul and John Daly, who I'm told took a lifelong interest and kept the oral history of their uncle's achievements towards Ireland's independence from the British Empire. Brendan Daly, a great friend of all of ours, was extremely proud of his uncle's contributions to the War of Independence. He sought the erection of this memorial monument out of a sense of feeling that it was important for people, especially the younger generation, to understand that the peace that they and so many others throughout Ireland fought for was very hard won. and that the peace they finally achieved would always be appreciated, and more importantly, that that peace would always be maintained. They say that you die twice. You firstly die when your bodily functions shut down, and secondly, and far more sadly, people die a second time when their name is never mentioned again. And to commemorate is to remember, and it is so important to remember the toil and the sacrifices made by the Darcy brothers in the pursuit of a dream for Irish independence. Memorials like this here at the roadside in Cooraclare ensure that they are not forgotten, and so, in memory, the Darcys live on. I will now speak about each of the Darcy men. Michael Darcy. At the age of 22, Michael Darcy lost his life taking part in an ambush of the Cooraclare RIC barracks. On the 19th of January 1920, the RIC were transferring furniture and other contents by trucks from the Cooraclare barracks to Knock barracks. Michael Darcy noticed the activity around the barracks and he informed the local IRA company commander. It was immediately decided that this was an opportune time to attack the convoy, and the truck deploying a firing party of local IRA men including John Morrissey, Sonny Burke, Sean Liddy, Michael Campbell and Michael Breen. As the ambush was getting underway, Michael Darcy acted as scout, and he was positioned closer to the village on the east side of the road, and he was to signal to the ambush party when the RIC vehicle was coming into sight. As the RIC truck approached, Michael Darcy gave the agreed signal, and his first cousin, Michael Campbell, loaded up. As the RIC truck approached, Michael Darcy gave the agreed signal, and his first cousin, Michael Campbell, loaded up a punt gun. As the truck moved downhill, Michael Campbell fired that gun, striking the bonnet of the truck. However, in this action, the muzzle of the gun exploded back on him, knocking Campbell to the ground, and it created a large cloud of smoke in the street. In the midst of all this chaos, Michael Darcy suddenly signalled again, as what they hadn't known was that the RIC truck was being followed by a number of British troops and RIC officers on bikes. Then one of the armed attackers spontaneously decided to cross the road and was spotted by one of the British, who fired on him. Seeing this, Michael Darcy panicked and he ran eastwards down the hill towards the Cooraclare River, with the British men then deciding to focus their fire on him. He went across the river with the intention of escaping and getting back home, but as the river was flooded, he struggled in the water and he was quickly surrounded by the British. Locals were preventing to try to reach Michael Darcy and bring him to the safety of the riverbank, as the British fired warning shots at any local who tried to save him from drowning. The following morning, Michael Darcy's body was recovered from the river, and an inquest into his death took place at Cooraclare National School. The jury returned the following verdict: that the body of Michael Darcy was found drowned, and we unanimously condemn the heartless actions of the British police in preventing his rescue. The second brother we commemorate is Patrick Darcy. So, Margaret Campbell Darcy's life was punctuated with moments of tragic personal loss that saw her burying her husband and 2 of her 7 children by the year 1920. Her husband Michael had died in 1906. Her eldest daughter, Sister Mary Brendan, died in a convent at the age of 21 on Christmas Eve of 1914. And Michael, who I mentioned just a few moments ago, who drowned in the aftermath of the RIC ambush in Cooraclare. Near the end of the War of Independence, yet another tragedy befell Margaret. Her eldest son Patrick, then aged 25, lost his life in what has been described as one of the most controversial cases during the War of Independence. Patrick was born just down the street here, and he went on to become a primary school teacher and an Irish language teacher in Doonbeg National School. He was an ardent Republican and he joined the local IRA here in Cooraclare. In 1918, Patrick took part in the disarmament of 2 RIC personnel up on the road in Alba, and later provided intelligence services to the West Clare Brigade. However, in a turn of events on the 17th of June 1921, he was taken from his home in Cooraclare by a group of men. His younger brother Martin Darcy was in the house at the time and years later described the incident at a military inquiry. In the words of Martin Darcy, "At around 5:30, a number of masked men came to our house and asked me where Patrick was. I told him he was not there and to come back, and that I did not know where he was. They said that Patrick had taken blood money and had given information about 2 men who had been on the run. They then left the house. Half an hour later, Patrick returned and entered the house. I told him that the masked men were after him, and he said that he had given information against 2 volunteers, and that he had given information against 2 volunteers. He said it was a lie, and he decided to go and ask for help from the parish priest. He left the house to do this, and later on, as I was standing in the doorway of my house and saw Patrick coming back from the priest, I saw the masked men go up to him and stop him. I went up to see what was happening, and Patrick told me he was going away with them for a few minutes and asked me to fetch his bicycle. I went back to the house and gave them his bicycle and saw him go away with the masked men, all on bicycles in the direction of Cree. That was the last time I ever saw my brother alive." So Patrick Darcy was held at Cree for a few hours, where it was alleged he was given a trial. However, to this day, it is yet to be determined if that trial ever really took place. That evening at Cree, Patrick Darcy was told to write his final will before being transferred to Dubeg, where he was to be executed by a firing squad. In Dubeg, Patrick Darcy was then blindfolded and placed against a wall near the railway. His last words to his friends were, "I forgive you, boys, but you're shooting me in the wrong." The third Darcy brother we commemorate is Jack Darcy. And I want to welcome Nigel Darcy, his grandson. Nigel, where's Nigel straight in front of us? You might put up your hand again just so we can identify. So for those who haven't met Nigel, delighted you're here from Stratford County Kildare, a grandson of Jack Darcy, and you're very welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Jack Darcy was born in Cooraclare, and upon finishing school he moved to Ennis. There he became a member of the Mid-Clare IRA. For his involvement in the shooting of a British sergeant, he was captured and sentenced to death. However, en route to being executed, Jack pretended to have stomach pains, so the British decided to stop the prison van and let him use a bathroom at Norrie Henchy's pub on the Tulla Road as you head out from Ennis. It was there that he escaped out the toilet window and went on the run for 6 more months until the truce. When the truce failed and the Civil War began, Jack joined the anti-treaty side. In January 1923, the anti-treaty IRA men decided to cause damage to the Quinn Railway. They tore up about 40 rails and they cut down the signal cabin posts before burning several railway wagons. This resulted in Jack, along with his 2 comrades, Patrick Hennessy and Con McMahon, yet again going on the run. They made their way down into the townland of Lasana, where they sheltered in a dugout. A few days later, their hideout was discovered by the Free State Army and a shootout occurred, with Jack being wounded. All 3 were captured and all 3 were taken into custody in Limerick prison by the Free State Army. Paddy Hennessy and Con McMahon were executed, and the following morning at prison, but the Free State decided to postpone Jack Darcy's execution until he recovered from his gunshot wounds. Fortunately for Jack, the hospital nurses had IRA sympathies, and when they heard he was to be executed, they hid him in the laundry section of the prison. And it was here that Jack, along with 30 of his comrades, spent a week around the clock burying an escape tunnel through the laundry section of the prison. And finally, on the night the tunnel was complete, the 30 of them made their escape. However, upon reaching the end of the tunnel, they realised that they had just tunnelled their way into the nearby mental hospital. Nonetheless, those buildings are still there to this day. Limerick Prison and St. Joseph's are side by side, so they got disorientated as they were tunnelling. Nevertheless, they escaped the grounds of the mental hospital with relative ease. So Jack Darcy then went on the run for another few months until the Civil War ended. He then returned to Ennis and he took over his aunt's bar, which later became known as Darcy's Corner. And to this day, still known as Darcy's Corner to the people of Ennis. It was often used for Fianna Fáil meetings over the years, and with its close proximity to the railway station, it became a very popular place for Cooraclare people who meet someone in town. They might go in for messages and get sidetracked for a few hours in Darcy's Corner pub. To conclude, Brendan was very proud of his father Johnny being a notable IRA volunteer down in Knock, and how his father Johnny later embraced peaceful politics by becoming a Fianna Fáil councillor. And just in my closing few words, while we're here in Cooraclare today, we've got to remind ourselves of world events. Thankfully, this country's at peace. But there's world events. We had President Zelensky, just for our American visitors, President Zelensky is in our county at the moment from Ukraine. He's meeting our Irish Prime Minister, Taoiseach, because there are many countries in this world at the moment fighting for peace, fighting to retain their sovereign boundary, and fighting to keep their civilians safe. Gaza is another example, and there are many countries, indeed the north of Ireland, the vision that the Darcy brothers and many more people have had to have a united Ireland still hasn't been achieved. But nowadays, unlike the young men of the 1920s, becoming amalgamated of the 1920s, it's through politics of peace and the institutions of the Good Friday Agreement that hopefully that dream of the Darcy brothers and many more will be achieved. In a moment we'll have a moment's silence to remember the dead. In particular today, we're going to remember the Darcy brothers, of course. I'll speak of them in a moment. But in particular, in our moment's silence, I'd like everyone to have a special thought for the late Brendan Daly. I'd like you all to think of the late Liam Burke. Two men who've given heart and soul to this. It would not exist but for them. And finally, when we have our minute's silence, think of the three Darcy brothers. And I made a similar speech some months ago at a commemoration in Ennis. But when you strip back the tricolour, park, War of Independence buildings, the honour that it befell on many families, when you strip all of that back, it's tragically sad that men who lost their lives in their 20s, after a community had honoured them, after we have held centenary commemorations for them, after we all remember them, in that moment, in one gunshot, their lives were stopped. And the lineage that they should have followed them, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, it never happened. And I always think when we gather at War of Independence memorials and remember those who gave their lives for Ireland, that is the saddest part. The medals, the certificates from the state, they speak to the honour, the commitment, the blood sacrifice. But it's the fact that in the crowd you will not find a son, a daughter, a granddaughter, a grandson. I think that is the real tragedy, that is the true casualty, the true tragedy of every war that has ever fallen on mankind. So we're going to have a moment's silence. Our yesterday, Rev Veronica Dealish, and may God save Ireland. And we're going to close out the formalities today by asking Tom Kelly, Tony Mescal and Ronan Daly to sing Oration Avian, as we'll have our tricolour flag raised by Eddie McNamara. And we're not fully finished here today. There'll be a bit of chat mingling afterwards, so please hang on, and thank you very much, everyone.
We
Yeah.
Okay, listen, thanks to everyone for coming. Bigger attendance than we thought, but fantastic theatre. Thank you very much to all. The Oration, fantastic, covered everything. We have some light refreshments and some finger food in Tubridy's now after the event is over. And thank you once again. There's no one else to sing now. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Oh yeah. Tony is going to do some of the song. Good night, Tony. You want to take photo here first for the so who's
The family, I think the family want to get the family members in for a photo. Stay as you are. Any more phones or something? Is that okay?
Exactly.
The breeze is sweetly blowing from the wild mountain side, all around the globe. We will go as we go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain side, all around the globe.
Can I get the keys so I can get the water out of your
I will surely find another if you find mountain time all around the globe. As we go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain side, all around the blue. As I am